الحصة هيدي إن شاء الله هنبلش نحكي عن شو relative charge of the nucleus, how to calculate the relative nuclear charge أو the relative charge of the nucleus. It is symbolized by letter Q. To calculate the relative charge of the nucleus of any atom, the relation is the relative charge of the nucleus Q is equal to the total charge of a proton plus total charge of a neutron. Then here is the sum of the charges of a proton and neutron. The Q, where the charge of the neutron is always equal to 0. Neutron is a neutral particle, has no electrical charge. Where the proton, the relative charge of a proton, of one proton, is equal to 1 plus or plus 1. We write it to plus 1 or we write it as 1 plus. To calculate Q, the relative charge, this means the total charge of a neutron is equal to 0. We remove it. So the Q is equal or depend on the total charges of protons. To calculate the total charge of the proton is equal to, we must know how many protons are equal to number of protons times the relative charge of one proton, which is equal. Number of protons is always represented by atomic number Z times 1 plus. To calculate the relative charge of electron cloud or the charge of electrons that are presented in electron cloud is the same. It is equal to the total charge of electrons. Then to calculate the charge of charges of the particle in electron cloud is equal to the total charges of electron. So the relative charge of electrons is equal to the total charge of electrons, which is depend on the number of electrons times charge of one electron, where the relative charge of one electron is equal to -1. The electrons have a charge is equal to -1. In any atom, the relative charge of a nucleus is equal to the opposite, minus. It is the opposite to the relative charge of electron cloud. For example, if an atom has a nuclear charge equal to 5 plus, the electronic charge is equal to 5 minus. It is opposite. The same value, 5, but an opposite sign. Proton is positive and electron is negative. Why the nuclear charge is opposite the electronic charge? Since the atom is neutral. Atom is neutral. يعني total charge of atom is 0, and the charge of atom الشحنات الكهربائية عند الاتوم, charge of atom is the summation of relative nuclear charge plus relative electronic charge. Okay, since the charge of the atom is equal to 0, then relative nuclear charge will be equal to the opposite of the relative electronic charge will be its opposite to relative electronic charge. Same value will have the same value but is opposite sign. نفس الأرقام ولكن one of the nuclear charge is a positive value and the electron charge has a negative value. The last point in this chapter is about the isotopes. The isotopes are atoms كتعريف أو مفهوم أن atoms of same element. يعني إذا يكون أنا عندي عناصر atoms input to the same element. في some elements are exist in different forms. Isotopes هن atoms of same element in different forms. For example, in this figure, we have two isotopes of oxygen, two different forms of oxygen. If we look to the nucleus of the first isotope of oxygen, or the first oxygen, we have 8 proton and 8 neutron. The other form of oxygen has 8 proton and 10 neutron. Then we have two different forms of oxygen, and there are another form of oxygen. Well, these are the most important isotopes of oxygen. They have the same atomic number. These 8 proton indicate the atomic بتدل على الatomic number. So they have the same atomic number but different mass number or different number of neutrons. إذا بنطلع the first atom of oxygen has 8 neutron. The second one has a 10 neutron and a different number of neutron but the same atomic number. If we calculate the mass number in the first atom of oxygen is equal the first atom or atom 1 of oxygen equal Z plus N. 8 plus 8 is equal to 16. The mass number of the second isotope is equal to 8 plus 10 is equal to 18. We have a different mass number. إذا isotopes are the different forms of atom. في بعض العناصر الموجودة بالطبيعة موجودة بعدة أشكال من الذرات. يعني بنشبهها مثل بعض الأشخاص اللي بيكون في عندهم توائم اللي هن بينتموا لنفس العائلة بس ولكن أشخاص مختلفين عن بعض ولكن بيتشاركوا إنه في بعض التوانس بيتشبهوا بعض. كمان عند in this figure we have the 3 isotopes of hydrogen. Hydrogen has the 3 isotopes. One of them is a protium, the second one is a deuterium, and the third one is a deuterium. This is a proton. In this nucleus we have only 1 proton and 0 neutron. We have in a deuterium we have 1 proton and 1 neutron. In tritium we have 1 proton and 2 neutron. All of them has in common a same number of proton. 1 proton, 1 proton, and 1 proton have same atomic number Z. is the same Z atomic number ولكن different mass number. If we want to calculate the mass number, the first one has a mass number is equal to 1. The mass number here is equal to 3. The sum of proton and neutron 1 plus 2 is equal to 3, and the mass number for deuterium is equal to 2. If we look to this example of the small exercise here below, for hydrogen atom indicates the number of proton in each one as we have explained before. number of proton in each one. The protium has 1 proton, deuterium has 1 proton, and the tritium has 1 proton. And number of neutron in each one. The first one has 0 neutron, the second one has 2 neutron, and deuterium has 1 neutron, the tritium has 3 neutron. Then the protium, if you want to answer this part, protium has Z equal to 1 as N, deuterium, and protium. For neutrons, to calculate neutrons, is a neutron in a protium, according to the figure, is equal to 0. A neutron in a deuterium is equal to 1. A neutron in tritium atom or tritium isotope is equal to 3. The mass number of each one, the mass number for the first isotope is equal to 1, as we calculate this is the mass number of protium. This is the mass number of tritium is equal to 3. We add 1 proton with 2 neutron, and the mass number of deuterium is equal to 2. This is the summation of 1 proton, 1 neutron. To calculate the relative charge of a tritium ion, we want to calculate the relative charge of a tritium, and we have the name of the coefficient will given. The relative charge of a proton must be given in exercises and also for neutron. To calculate the relative charge, nuclear charge of a tritium, we say nuclear charge is equal to number of protons times the relative charge of 1 proton, equal number of proton in a tritium is equal to 1 times the relative charge of 1 proton is given is equal to 1 plus. So the nuclear charge or the relative nuclear charge of a tritium atom is equal to 1 plus. We calculate the relative nuclear charge by using the following relation. For oxygen atom, compare the nucleus. In order to compare the nucleus of oxygen atom, compare the nucleus, we must compare the composition of the nucleus. Yani we must talk about the number of protons and the number of neutrons. And the first isotope, according to the figure, the first isotope has 8 protons and 8 neutrons, while second isotope, according to the figure, has 8 protons and 10 neutrons. According to the figure, or in this part, we have 8 proton for the first isotopes and 8 neutron, 8 proton and then 10 neutron for the second isotopes. Determine the atomic mass for each atom. As we say in previous period, the atomic mass equal to the mass number with unit U. So atom 1, the first atom of oxygen, atom 1 of oxygen has atomic mass equal atomic mass to the mass number. We add the number of protons and the neutrons in order to calculate the mass number. We have 16. نجمعهم 16 with unit U لأنه الماس number A is equal to Z plus and 8 plus 8 is equal to 16. The second isotope A is equal to 8 plus 10 equal to 18 mass number. So atomic mass is equal to 18 U, the atomic mass. To calculate the relative charge, we have a relative charge of oxygen atom is 8 plus. Deduce the relative charge of the electron. To deduce the charge قديش عندي لي charge للإلكترونز، نحن بنعرف إنه دايما ال relative charge of electron equal opposite relative charge of protons. يعني ال opposite to this value يعني is equal to 8 minus opposite. Specify the atomic mass of each isotope كمان similar to the previous part. This part is repeated second time. I will eliminate this part and it is similar to part 2.2. These are the same part, so I cancel this part and thank you.